Good afternoon, all. I am listening to our debate um, about reparations, and I just want to share the story with you guys. As you know, I'm writing on my book, so as I hear various conversation, it reflects my memory of incidents and occurrences that has happened to my family. I'm sure along with a lot of other families. As I always say, that my stories are not isolated incidents. I'm sure my youngest son, he's the baby of the bunch. And you know that your baby, I love all my babies, but your last child definitely makes an impact in your life along with the others. But the youngest, let me say, my youngest is one of my closest children. And I want to tell you about this story when he was in his formative years. Um, we lived in St. Louis, and black boys have a struggle in the education system, and it's because of how the system is set up. They're predestined to fail before they even get started in their formative years. So my youngest was struggling. He was struggling in school. You know, when those boys and girls get into middle school and getting ready to go to high school, they have new peer pressures and just all sort of things that they have to fight and struggle with. But let me get to the point. He was, I think, just entering high school, and I'm kind of hard with dates, so it's been so much going on in our lives, and this was so long ago. But anyhow, my main goal for all my children was them to at least be educated. I always wanted my kids to be educated because that's something that my father pushed in his children's lives. My father was a farmer from out of Mississippi who did not have a very high education, but he had wisdom that was more valuable than education. So my youngest son, his initial is E.T. I wanted him to be successful, and as I said, to graduate. So the regular school system was so chaotic, and it was just not a really good fit for him. So he and I made the decision that he would go to Job Corps. And so we went through the process, and I don't know if there is any still Job Corps around or not, but Job Corps is when kids, girls and boys, are struggling in the regular school system. They go to programs that was government funded at that time called Job Corps. So we made the arrangements for him to go to Job Corps. Now I did not personally want him to go to the local Job Corps in our town. I wanted him to go to our Job Corps where he could kind of get a sense of independence and being able to be away from home so that he could mature and not be so dependent on mom. Because as I said, I was a widow. So I had the challenge of raising 6 kids single-handedly without father present. I had community fathers that tried to help, but that's not the same as my husband, who was gunned down in Birmingham. Well, we get him shipped off to a Job Corps, which was in the boot hills of Missouri. I wasn't really familiar with the area at all, but I leaned and trusted on the recruiter that recruited for him to go. So we sent him off to Job Corps, and he gets settled in, and I'm praying and hoping that he has success. We even took a road trip because he was getting ready to graduate. He had got to the point where he was getting ready to graduate from Job Corps, and Job Corps is like, I think it's like a trade, vocational trade, which is something that we really need today for our children. It's just good for kids to have some kind of skill trade up under their belt. So we went to take a road trip. So I wanted to visit and see what his environment looked like, and we were taking him his graduation clothes. And my youngest was I call him a ladies' man. The women just flocked over my child. Grown women, girls, you name it. Females loved him because of his charm. And he got that from his dad, just a ladies' man. Women just loved him. Even when he was 3 years old, I had grown women that knew him, but I didn't know anything about them. But they would say, hey, he knew older women, and they were crazy about him. But to get to my point, so when we took his clothes up there, I got to visit with some of his instructors and see what the campus was like. And we were very, very excited that this graduation was going to happen. Oh my God, it was just so awesome. So we visited, I got feedback from instructors. He looked happy. And so we're getting ready for graduation. And as I said, this particular Job Corps facility was up in the Boot Hills. Let me give you a picture, a description of what it was like. I can just imagine that when Harriet Tubman was trying to lead the slaves to freedom in the Underground Railroad, just picture this for a second of what they had to do as far as going through the woods and trying to get to freedom, to safety. That's how deep and up in the hills this place was. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I don't even know how we got there because it was just so in such a remote area. I'm just trying to give you a visual of what it was like. Very scary. Nothing but woods, empty land. There's no way the kids could run away. Nothing like that. They were in an isolated environment. So, it was a Sunday night, and I can remember it so vividly because, as I said, it made me feel like I had embodied the times when slavery was actually going on, when slaves were trying to get away from their cruel masters and trying to find themselves to freedom. It was storming that night, that Sunday night. It was really raining and windy. And if I remember, I think I was the only one at the house at this time in St. Louis. I don't remember where my other children were, but I feel like that I was by myself. About 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a hard knock on my front door. I'm frightened because I'm not used to anybody coming to my house unannounced, and I'm by myself. When I finally go to the door, it's my son with his bags in his hands telling me that he just got dropped off by Job Corps officials. He was cold and scared, eyes glassy, very shaken, and of course I'm trying to understand, why is my son at my front door and not in my house, standing in front of me? The van that dropped him off, no adult came to the door. They just dropped him off and the van pulled off. So I let him, he was in shock, traumatized. I could see in his eyes he was traumatized. He didn't know himself why he had been dropped off. He said all he was told was to gather his things and come on, let's go. Let's remember his initials is E.T. So the next morning, I'm trying to figure out what's going on, get my mind together, make sure he's okay. So I called the facility in Job Corps. It took about half the day for anybody to call me back and tell me what happened. They tell me that my son had been charged with sexual assault. So we're talking about a 16-year-old kid being charged with sexual assault. So I am a type of person, I'm a fighter by nature. I always want to get to the brunt of things. When I say I'm a fighter, that doesn't mean I'm a physical fighter. That means that I want to know what the facts are. Why is an incident happening the way that it's happening? So finally, I was so persistent in calling the Job Corps facility. I think his counselor called me back, and this is somebody I had met when we traveled there. She tells me that he was shipped away because some white girl there who was older than him, she was 21, and he was 16, had accused him of sexual assault. But the truth of the matter is, this young woman, which was older than my son, decided that she was going to use my son for her little sexual pleasures and fantasies. And when he finally did tell me about it, because he was very honest and transparent, I told him it had to stop, and that if he needed to let adults there know what was going on, that's something that he needed to do. And he did that right away. He told her, my mom said, my son, he loves me, and so he listens to what I tell him, especially at that time. So he did tell the young lady that it had to stop. His mom said that he could no longer continue, and that's when this young woman decided to call rape, assault. So I was told this would be put on his record and that they were discharging him from this facility. So I proceeded to try to contact some help. And it's hard to get a lawyer. If you don't have big money, guys, it's hard. If it's not a lot of money in it for them, it's hard to get lawyers on certain challenges that you face. So God stepped in, and he told me, I always believe to listening to God, and I'm not being a religious person. I'm not trying to set religion here, but I'm just giving you an idea of what my thought process was at that time. I called the N.A.A.C.P in that area, and I spoke with them in the office, and I proceeded to tell them the story of what I just told you guys, and they told me let them handle it. I don't know what they told them in Job Corps, but they did not put this on my child's record, and this 21-year-old woman was expelled. But my point of this is that we as people of color, have always been thrown into situations, and nobody has ever looked at it from both sides. It's always been a one-side situation because of a female, or because of their skin is other than brown or of color. Can you imagine what they could have done for my child's future, to have that label in his records? And I remember I was younger then, so I'm sure I called the news stations. I had to do a lot of calling and fighting for my son not to be labeled someone that committed sexual assault. So this is just one of my stories of challenges that me and my family have to face. Now, I keep hearing, we need to study this. We need to look at this. I'm referring to reparations. White people know the history of how they treated us. Whether your grandmother did it or your distant cousin did it, you already know the history of this country. So I'm not understanding if you gave the Japanese reparations, and the Jewish people got reparations. Why is it such a difficult debate to do what is right and grant people of color reparations? Let us have a fair chance in this country. Why are people who have it easy, especially people in power, how can they not see that this is something that we need to have and have right away? And we also need to talk about expunging and taking all of these negative information out of our young black men and women, especially in Texas, off of people's records. It's common sense. If you clean up somebody's record, how do you have somebody going to a correctional facility and you say you're rehabilitating, but you're not cleaning their record up? So all of these things that we talk about is just simple. You don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar just to do what is right. So that's a story I want to share with you guys. The N.A.A.C.P was very instrumental in handling that situation for my baby. But the gist of the matter is, government, people in power running this country, you waste money on stuff that is just ridiculous. This is a very important issue, and it needs to be brought to the forefront, and it needs to be taken seriously, and we need reparations now. Thank you.